So you wanna go to war with me? You're talking like you think you're royalty. You think that I'm afraid, but I don't break. I heard you question my stability. You think I'll fall just like a guillotine, but I am here to stay. Won't look away. Storm is coming, so you better start running. No, you can't control, feel it in my bones. I'm coming for the, coming for the.
Hello.
Hello.
That's always so good. I love how she came back when it started.
I tried to get her to lay down in her chair, but she was like, no, I don't think I'm going to do that today. Thanks.
She said, you are my chair today.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. We got Kat with us. We got Taylor with us. We have Darlene with us. We have Raja with us. We have Cool Gamer, Magic Angel. Hello. Welcome, everyone. How are y'all doing today? Jess, how are you doing today?
I am sleepy, but I am here.
Yes. And for being here today, we have a bunch to talk about, as I had internet issues last time. So we have Syd Fields, chapter 7 and 8. We have Heartstopper, the books, and I think volume 1 and 2 actually covers the first season.
I think you are correct. I only read volume 1, but I've read volume 2 before, so.
Yes. Covers the first season of the show. And then also Chinatown, both the screenplay and the movie. And also Camp NaNoWriMo. And also a surprise question for Jess that I'm going to spring on her right now, which is Jessica. How is the romance going? You had a 5K day, a random 5K day. You told a group of us about a romance. And I just want to know how that's going and when I'll get it.
So I did a brain dump of the werewolf romance and did just like a basic where I think the plot might go outline. I figured out a couple of characters. I gave some characters some names. And then after the 5K day, I closed it and I put it away and then went back to French Grim Reaper because I need to prioritize that. So
that's like best case scenario.
I am trying to be a grown-up. Will that happen? I don't know.
Yeah, I appreciate the attempt.
But I'm trying.
Whether it works or not, I appreciate it.
And then I got this.
And then we got Raja. Hello.
She's sleeping.
Now, I mean, she was just running around, and now she's like, sleep time.
Oh, hello. How is Project Death going? Where are we at in the process of we should be exchanging books? What is it looking like?
Yeah, thank you for that question. I love it. That's how I feel.
Well, I'm pretty sure that we were like, let's exchange books in March. And then we're like, how about April? And then we're like, maybe May. And then we were like, you know what we should do? We should skip 2 months next time and we'll just do it at the end of July.
Yeah.
And now we're here.
I love the idea of, okay, we were doing 1 month at a time. And then now we just did 2 months, right?
And we still
what
failed.
If we did 3 months? Surely that's the solution, Jessica. Let me say, I am actually, I'm not yet at the halfway point for Project Death. I am kind of keeping tabs on where I'm at, and I'd say I haven't updated my website, but I'd say I'm about like 42%. It's just that it keeps getting bigger, which is what it's supposed to do. It needs to get bigger. It's a standalone fantasy. So it was 2 little words last time. And but so then I feel like I'm constantly making no progress because it just stays at 42% basically. So
that's fair.
I mean, the progress is being made. It's just slow progress. Very slow, but it's okay.
Okay. What worked last time?
Yes.
August. I don't know what the plan is, but we'll make a plan.
Okay.
When we're done. Okay. Being live on the internet.
Yeah. I believe in us. Everyone else, let us know what you're working on. And if you too are having some difficulties with your projects, or if you're doing great, or if you're having trouble figuring out timelines, we would love to know.
Or if you're struggling with time zones.
Or time zones, which you could be.
You could be.
711 words for Cat today, but I just wasn't feeling it. I might go back to writing later. Yeah, I mean, the fact that you got 711 words when you weren't feeling it is still pretty impressive, all things considered. Hello, Vicky. Yes, we love talking. We love a little chat. That's what these are. Hello, Cool Gamers now over on my side of the channel, because as some of y'all might know from the past few times that we've been doing this, we are now splitting the stream, which is quite fun. So you can comment on either Jess's channel or my channel.
It's great because we don't have to remind you which channel we're going to be at. We're going to be at both.
We're here. Almost at the end of draft 2 of my project. Ooh, Taylor, that's very exciting. Hello. Hi, Melissa.
You say hi, Raja?
I know.
She's like, no, I see Bean. Thank you.
So cute. I'm trying to think of how I'm doing in Camp NaNoWriMo. I have not updated the website in a while, which is where I always fail at. I got sick, and then I went on a trip with a friend that was pre-planned while I was still a little bit out of it. Migraine sick, I should say, not contagious sick. And then I have my brother and his friends coming to town. And so it just feels like the last thing I do is update the camp website. But I have A Closet Full of Cauldrons is going well, and Project Death is going just slow, but well, all things considered. Jess, how is Camp NaNoWriMo going for you?
I mean, I've written about 10,000 words, but approximately 2,000 of those was me doing the werewolf romance. So about 8,000 in French Grim Reaper, which isn't terrible.
No, I think that's
great. This weekend is Capture the Words. So I'm going to try to do a 10K weekend. I don't have to work this weekend.
Yay.
Theoretically, if I could work Friday night as well, I might be able to do a 15K weekend, but your girl is not pushing it. If anybody is working on projects and they need some motivation this weekend, me and author Anne Sophie will be doing Capture the Words, which is basically we're picking teams. Kate is a trader and she's on Anne's team. And we're just gonna do 4 hours of live streams on Anne's channel and then an hour break and then 4 hours on mine. It's gonna be 8 a.m. Eastern Daylight Time to 5 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time. And we're just gonna do sprints and do the works.
Yeah, and you'll have like a fun Google Sheet set up so people can put their words in. And it's like it's full competition, but like in a fun way.
Yeah. Okay. Can you sleep on the desk and just next to me? Thank you. Okay.
No. Hello, Mysterious Cloud Nixie. Hello. Emily, good morning. Hello.
Good morning.
I've been editing my manuscript. Actually started bringing my laptop to my day job in order to get some done during my breaks. Oh, that's smart.
Very smart.
I like that. I'm glad that you have the breaks that you can kind of sneak it in. I'm bogged down in the middle of my sci-fi fairy tale retelling. Oh, okay. I was about to ask. Hansel and Gretel. Oh, that's quite cool. I would actually love to see that sci-fi'd. That sounds fun. Jessica, hello. I'm working on revising / rewriting A Glittering Cage, my standalone queer paranormal romance. We're at 53,000 so far for this month out of my 60K goal. Okay, you're very close.
She's been crushing it.
That is awesome. And what a great title. Love it. And love a paranormal romance. I'm ready for paranormal to like come back in full. You know, I feel like there was a time where that's everywhere.
There's a few. There's still more romance than paranormal at this point, too.
Mhm.
I want to see a little more paranormal and
Me
a little
too.
less romance. Am I going to write mine that way?
Yeah,
The world
Jessica.
may never know.
Write the book you want to read.
The world may never know.
I've been completely not good. This camp got bit by the shiny new idea bug, and now I'm writing a Greek myth descendants thing. Ooh, heck yes.
Here for it.
Love it.
Love it.
Also, sometimes it's a shiny new idea. Sometimes we gotta lean into it. You know, Jessica made hers like a one-day thing for now, but I think it's good to sometimes you gotta let the ideas out because otherwise they'll just like start taking up too much of our brain and it's impossible to do what we need to do.
It was like a 2,300 word day, though. Like it was a big,
That's
big
a
day.
good day.
It was
Yeah.
a big day.
It needed to get out.
Yeah.
Hello, Miller Nature. I'm still researching and plotting a new idea. Very fun. Heck yes. Well, Jessica, how do we want to do this? Because
let's ask the important questions first. Did
Sure.
anybody read chapters 7 and 8 of the Syd Fields?
Yeah.
Did anybody read Heartstopper? Did anybody watch Chinatown? Let us know of those three things, what you did, and then we'll see if anybody actually did anything, and then we'll focus on what the most people did first.
Smart. Because at the time last month, there was a lot of fire still in us having just watched Chinatown. And frankly, that fire has died, though only because I've told it and complained to multiple people about how much I disliked it. Like physically out loud, I could not contain myself. So
Same.
it's mostly chilled now.
I'm glad I took notes because I wouldn't have remembered.
I don't remember most of it. I remember what I told you at the time. Let's see. Nick, I read volume 1 of Heartstopper. Okay, perfect.
Excellent.
Ava has read all of Heartstopper. It's one of my favorite series. Okay, I'm very excited to chat about it. Oh my gosh. Okay, Jessica, real quick. There wasn't enough stabby or magic in the first draft, so this draft is a lot darker.
Good.
Love adding more stabby.
Stabbies.
Yes.
Here for it. This is me motioning a stabby. Not like a,
Anything else?
shake weight. I don't know.
Okay.
I have read the 4 published volumes of Heartstopper, and I read them all in one day and was like, I'm not ready to let it go. And so then I went online where she posts them online and read through like the beginnings of what will be volume 5 at some point. But it looks like we should probably discuss our friends from Heartstopper.
I think so too, which is perfect because I checked out volumes 1 and 2 and 3. So I read 1 and 2 because they cover basically the first season of the show. And for those of you, because we didn't really explain it, but also this whole year, Jess and I have undertaken the task of both like basically reading and then watching adaptations. So sometimes it's a poem like Mulan. Sometimes it is just reading the screenplay as we did last month for Chinatown, which Syd Field's book that we're following along with each month, highly recommended. And then eventually the goal is to write a screenplay, which I'm following along. I don't know if you can see my notes. I'm following along as I'm reading the book. And by the way, there has yet to be a write any of the pages moment yet. I keep thinking it's going to happen, but it's not going to happen yet. And then Jessica has a plan for next year for some fun, like live streamy elements for her adaptation she's going to do.
Yes.
Yeah.
I have a plan for a story in my brain that is a sequel to a movie that we all know and love, The Covenant. We love her. She's a queen. But because like it's not something that I could ever do anything with because it's someone else's intellectual property, I feel like I'm comfortable enough sharing that online with everyone so people can actually see my process.
Yeah.
And I think it'll be fun I already have like the idea of what I want the story to be in my brain. It's in here. I think about it enough that I am not worried to write it down because I don't think I need to. Like it lives in there.
That's perfect. That's nice. It'll just wait for the day when it is time. And when we finally finish this freaking Syd Field book. Hello, Diane. Welcome. Okay, so let's talk about Heartstopper. So this was it was an online why am I blanking on the word? Not a graphic novel yet. It was like an online comic. Thank you. Yeah. Online comic turned graphic novel turned Netflix hit series. So it's kind of gone through it's the adaptation process, though I will say for those who have both read and watched it, some of this is like word for word. Actually, I would argue most of this is word for word, which taught me a little bit about the graphic novel to TV show and how close I find those adaptations could be versus like a novel.
It actually started as Nick and Charlie. Nick and Charlie? Those are their names, right? Ben and Charlie? Remind me their names.
There's Nick and Charlie, yeah.
Who's Ben and why is he here?
Ben was the bad guy. Ben was the one who like dated Charlie in secret, but he wasn't really dating. And
okay. So the name exists. I didn't create it in the world.
No, I'm pretty sure that's Ben. Yeah.
Okay. Anyhoozle. In her first book, Solitaire, it features Charlie's older sister, Tori, is the main character. But it's set when they're all older. So you already know that Nick and Charlie are a couple. And then people like loved them so much that people were like, we would love to see how they got together. And so then she started like writing the comics about their backstory. And then that was how we got to where we are now.
Oh my God.
Also, she wrote Solitaire when she was 17.
I flipped at the back and at one point it was like she was born in 1994 and I was like, and this was published in like
I know. I was like, I'm sorry.
On before.
What? I think I sent it to you where I was like, this said something about on her like 21st birthday or her 20th birthday or something. She was just like home alone by herself and lonely. So she started sketching these drawings of them. And I was like, what?
What 20-year-olds could do this?
What?
That's incredible.
I have since heard that Solitaire is like not the best, but I mean, when you think about the fact that Solitaire was her first novel, she's had at least 3 full-length novels published since then, plus the series, plus multiple novellas. Like, clearly she's doing okay.
Yeah, I see Solitaire, Radio Silence, I Was Born for This. And that was at the time of Volume 1's publication. I was going to say, whose first novel's that great anyways? But I'm sure there are some exceptions to that as a rule. But
I think for the most part, like, they're all good.
Yeah.
But that's why anytime I read a debut novel from a person, I'm like, this was okay, but it wasn't my favorite, but I'll read another book by them if it
I can see some growth.
Yeah, if the premise catches me, I'll read another one. It's not a big deal.
I think that's a fair way of doing it. Yeah.
Of course, I do that with people even when it's not the debut book that I read, because some books just aren't for you.
It is one of my most comforting things is thinking about the authors that I adore 90% of their work and 10% of it. I'm like, this is so not for me somehow. And it just reminds me that I'm like, you can, even like your favorites can have a swing and a miss for you. Just personal taste is so fascinating.
We're just here.
Yeah, it's a really cool backstory. I mean, the fact that she was able to even have characters that people loved, so much from that they basically demanded a spinoff is incredible in itself. Like, that's the kind of emotion you want to elicit as someone creating something.
Oh yeah.
So cool. Ava saying, I love how loyal the show stayed to the books, but any changes are made were constructive and expanded on the story, not changing it unnecessarily. So that's what I thought was really interesting, was there's still parts of this that are basically, oh, should we say what this is? Basically, if you don't know what Heartstopper is, this is usually when I rely on Jess, the professional booktuber. But it's just boy meets boy, boys become friends, boys fall in love.
Basically, the story process is Charlie is a year younger than Nick. Charlie is out. The whole school knows. They go to an all-boys school. The whole school knows that Charlie is gay. He gets like a huge crush on Nick, who everyone believes is straight. And throughout the first book, the first comic, and then the second, we're going through the process with Nick where he's like literally Googling, how can I be straight if I think I might like this one boy? It's a time.
What is a bisexual?
Yeah. Is it possible to be romantically interested in both boys and girls?
Yeah.
I didn't know I ever liked boys, but now there's this one boy, and I think maybe I do.
Yeah.
Specifically.
Yeah.
So
it's so cute. It is like
it's
a
adorable.
warm cup of tea. It is just so nice. Thank you. That was the excellent way to describe it. I will say I think it's interesting. I actually watched the show first. And yes, bisexual people. I watched the show first and then came to the graphic novels. And so some of the changes I was kind of surprised by that the adaptation did. Like, I think the school is a lot harsher than in the TV show, the way it's represented, than in the series. I find that the actual graphic novels are more realistic in that way for our current time for most places. Asterisks on all of this. Because they do some stuff where like they're, obviously Nick's Googling and he's trying to find some stuff out. And there are just some things that I found surprising. But I guess for the like cinematic version, it makes sense that they would make some of these changes. I think the best change they made is, I'm blanking on her character's name now, the friend who switched schools. What's her name? Oh, she's not in the back of the first one because she doesn't play a role in the first one as much.
She's not in the first one.
Elle?
All right.
Am I thinking of Elle? Yes, Elle.
Yeah.
Yeah, Elle has a much larger role in the TV series. Actually, the whole of seeing the girls' school in the TV series, I thought was a really excellent.
They introduce it a lot earlier than what they do in the series. Yeah.
Yeah, I thought that was. Yeah, that was my favorite change that they made. I kind of appreciated in the graphic novels that some of the rugby lads were nice to Charlie and stuff. I thought that was kind of sweet.
Fairly early on.
Yeah, that it was like not all of Nick's friends were the worst, but most of them.
Most of them, though, were the worst.
Yeah.
Well, to be fair, Nick's like, I don't really like them. I just, we play sports together and they're not that great. And you're like, I think we've all been in a situation where we're in some kind of an activity, whether it's a sport or art or whatever. Mm-hmm. And you're like, the people that are in there, you're like, we do this thing together like 6 times a week or whatever. And they're okay, but I don't really like any of them enough to like want to be their bestest friend ever.
Yeah, I think it's a very like human experience to you make friends with the people you're around. And as a kid, sometimes you're in school or you're in after school activities and like you're kind of forced to be with them, but you wouldn't have chosen to be with them. And so sometimes if you've all grown up together, you're just like, I guess these are my friends. And for him to get to have this moment of being like, oh my God, I didn't realize how much my friends sucked. Like I didn't realize that I even have any, like, do I have any close friends that I actually like is I think something a lot of people experience. So I thought that was really sweet to see.
They definitely get more interesting as they go on. As I said, I've read all 4. I haven't watched the second series yet.
I think it's coming out soon. I don't think it's out yet, is it?
I think it is. I could be incorrect.
I just watched the trailer. So that's why I think it's not out yet. The trailer for it was posted 7 hours ago.
Raja, what do you think? She's like turned around and is completely on my arm.
No.
Let's see. Heart.
Okay. Ava says it's out on August 3rd.
August 3rd. Okay. See, I thought it was out already, so just don't mind me.
I think, yeah, because we had at one point talked about reading Heartstopper back when we were first like envisioning this year-long thing, and I don't know that they had the dates yet, or they might have changed the dates. But
it definitely wasn't like part of our original plan, because we were like, but we need things that actually have a screenplay that we can find. But then we were like, no, we don't care. We want to read and watch Heartstopper.
Yeah, we can switch it off. I think we've done a good job personally of finding like a poem, a graphic novel, or whatever. And we've gotten screenplays like half the time.
Yeah. I made sure that next month's has a screenplay. We'll tell you guys what that one's going to be later. So
yeah, I'm excited to see what they do for season 2 then. And I will have read hopefully the next 2 volumes before season 2 comes out. I'm pumped. I do love not just, I mean, this is the adaptation wise, but I love that they kept the elements of the drawings that would appear on this. Oh, it's so beautifully done. Honestly,
it is so close, and in my brain, they did a fantastic job of casting. And like when I think back on scenes, because I picture things in my head anyway, plus it's a comic, plus it's TV, I really have a hard time remembering like if there were specific scenes that were or weren't in one or the other, because they're so seamlessly put together in my brain that it all exists.
It is cast so well. The actors do such a phenomenal job that they truly embody the bit, and also the characters are just so sweet, and it's so good. And because there are so many elements, I would say like if it's not 50%, it has to be close, that they just that they just adapted exactly. Like some of the, I was just thinking the movie theater sequence is more or less exact. Like they might have changed some of the texting bits, but like
when you think about it though, is not a screenplay literally just what people are saying? And so for the most part, that's what a comic is just what the people are saying.
That's literally, I had like this mind exploding moment where I was like, oh my God, it makes so much sense that a graphic novel to screen adaptation would work so well, that you wouldn't have to, if you didn't want to change all that much, because you just have the dialogue bits and then you have the visual element, and that's more or less, now it's just moving. You know, that's why, I mean, there's so many manga to anime adaptations that do that, but it's fun to see a fully live action version of that. It's just so good. I will say, I guess the difference would be the addition of the music is really nice on the screen version. But I feel like the way that she drew everything, it's just so good. You get the mood.
Honestly, it's almost like she drew it from the live action and not the other way around.
That's how it feels. That seamless. Yeah. Kit Connor is exactly how I picture Eric Masson, the main character of my debut novel, and I don't mind admitting that I'm in love with Kit Connor. A good choice. Feel like all of the people in the show are 20 years younger than me, but
I think they are at least 20 years younger than me. If not you, then me for sure.
Yeah, I know. She's so sweet.
She's having a time.
Oh, a little stretch. Oh, so cute. I'm trying to think if there's anything else I could even say about this, because I don't have anything really constructive. It's just a gush fest. That's how I felt watching it. That's how I felt reading it.
So you've read Legends and Lattes now, correct?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Did you read So This Is Ever After yet?
I have not yet.
Okay, I need you to read it.
Is it the perfect mix of these two things?
Yes. These are the two books. When I tell people they should read So This Is Ever After by F.T. Lukens, it is the perfect blend of Legends and Lattes and Heartstopper.
Okay.
It has all of like the just cozy vibe of they're building a society technically, but building a coffee shop plus two gay boys in love denying the fact that they're in love. It is so good.
I had checked it out and then didn't read it in time and had to return it. So
I knew you had checked it out, so I wasn't sure if you had read it yet or not.
Yeah. I'm checking it out again now, and I will let you know.
You have to read it. It's fantastic.
I will. Oh.
Or I will drive to your house and knock you in your head.
Yeah, the 20 hours.
I'll drive 20 hours just to knock you upside the head with it.
Oh, oops, sorry.
Seems excessive.
Oh, well, the cat, I know. Such a good cat.
Free to a good home. You can have her.
It was So This Is Ever After. Also, you should read Legends and Lattes Day.
Yeah.
Yes. So
the one bad thing about this is that she refuses to use the litter box because that's Merlin's litter box, not Raja's litter box. So if you don't remember to make her go outside,
she won't.
It's not fun.
Right.
She'll find something fabric to pee on.
No, Raja, why would you do this?
Usually, though, she comes in during the day when it's hot, and then she stays outside all night, and usually during the morning. She likes to go outside and play at night when it's cool out.
So cute. I'm excited for our year end. I think last year we did a tier ranking or our little chart for our favorite reads we've done. I'm excited to do one that's both the books themselves and then the adaptations, or whichever way. Or do we rank them all together? Do we rank them separate, like original source material? And we'll have to figure it out. But I have a feeling that Heartstopper, both versions, will be really high up on the list.
Definitely.
Which is a great pivot, unless you have more to say, Jessica.
My I was going to say is somebody take note to ask Becca to do Vampire Academy in October.
Yeah. I will take note and I will text her.
I cannot because I am holding a cat.
Yes. Okay. Noted, and it will be texted. I was gonna say in comparison,
though she may not want to after we talk about Chinatown.
Yeah, in comparison, Chinatown, I think we'll be making the very, very bottom of both of our lists. Has anyone read? Did anyone read the screenplay or watch the movie Chinatown? Have you ever watched or wanted to watch Chinatown? Oh no, I have a better poll.
Have you ever heard of Chinatown?
We're really gonna break Becca's heart. I'm gonna mute myself. Sorry, my typing's so loud.
Is the cat spoiled? I mean, what do you think?
Okay. Yeah, the most spoiled. All right. I've asked the question. Y'all let us know if before AuthorTube chat you'd heard of the movie Chinatown. If you could tell anyone a smidge about what Chinatown's about. This is the question we want to know.
Because I had never heard of it.
And I've heard of it, but I couldn't have told you what it was about other than it was a movie that people who love cinema love. I had no idea.
I had no clue that it was the world's best screenplay ever written, or that people considered it to be that. And it boggles the mind. And Becca was just completely thrown off by the fact that we had never heard of it, which, to be fair, Becca has worked in TV and movies for decades.
Yes.
So not to call out how old she is, we're just going to say decades. She told the internet how old she was in a video, so that's all on her now.
She did. Yeah.
But they kept referencing it in the Syd Field book, and I was like, why is this why is this a thing? It's in there so much. So much.
It is. And he will reuse the same examples, which I don't think is a bad thing given necessarily when this book originally was written and when it originally came out. So it's basically one of the movies that people think is like a master of cinema, of craft. And so he references it so much. Basically, Chinatown is like a detective noir film. Like, it was made in the 70s, set in the 30s, and is just like kind of, I guess, what kicked off a lot of like PI style movies. And so it was, I guess, it was iconic for the time. I guess it's still iconic for some people.
That's what they tell us.
To the Hollywood, to the movie world. But Jess and I were not super impressed. I will say I enjoyed bits of it. My problem was I didn't like, the ending was trash. I was so mad at the ending that I wanted to kick my TV.
I hated the opening. From the beginning was like, this is awful. Why do people like this?
Yeah, chapter 8, Jess, when he's talking about like another opening that starts with just like full-on sex, I was like, I mean, I'm starting to catch a pattern with Syd Field, what he likes the opening of movies to be.
Okay, so here's the thing. If you've never seen it, if you've never, you know, the very beginning scene is, let me figure it out. Okay. It opens to like pictures of a man and a woman having sex in like a bush. I don't know. Multiple pictures of a man and a woman having sex in a bush. And why is now the time that you decide to mow the lawn? Cool. It's like he's in the PI's office. The PI's showing him these pictures where he's caught his wife having sex with another man. Okay. You can't lay up there. That's the computer.
She's like, can't I though? Oh. What is it with cats and keyboards? They just fucking love them.
You can't, my dude. You can't do this. You gotta go over there. Go to your chair. I don't know what I was doing now because
you're talking about the opening. Yeah,
there they are. Yeah. But they are showing pictures of a man and a woman having sex, and he's very upset. And like, I'm like, I don't know that I needed to see that. I don't know that that's.
I think that Syd would argue that it sets up the gritty, dark tone of the movie. This is what I'm learning about screenplays, is how much you want to set up the tone in the first page, which makes sense. I didn't have as big of a problem with this opening as Jess did. I was kind of like, oh, whatever. I was also trying to read the screenplay as I watched, so I honestly don't think I caught it as much. I think early on, one of the big issues I had, Jess and I, when we were talking about the screenplay versus the movie, since he keeps going on and on about the screenplay being like the best screenplay ever, is that the movie itself actually omitted what I thought would have been a really great line from the screenplay to include, which basically like summarizes the point of the movie, which is that if you're wealthy enough, you can get away with anything. That's what the PI main character tells the guy that sees his wife cheating.
His name's Curly.
Yeah, Curly. He's like, you're not rich enough to get away with this. Like,
he's so mad that his wife, he's so upset. He's distraught. He's like wailing, like keening wails, that he's so distraught that his wife is cheating on him. And so his response is, I should kill her. And the whatever the detective guy's name is, I don't even remember. He's Cross. No, Cross is the grandpa. Polanski?
No, that's the director.
That's the director. I've got notes in here, but obviously,
let me see if I can pull up.
Not very well put together. Anywho, my point is, Curly says that he wants to kill his wife, and he says only rich people can get away with murder, which is basically the plot of the
That
story.
is the point of the movie. And it's worth mentioning again that Syd Field, we watched this movie because of Syd Field, and we read the screenplay because of Syd Field, because he's saying how great the screenplay is. And there's a big point about, at some point, even outright stating the point of your movie in a lot of ways, like subtly. You don't want anyone to just be able to know, like, this is the movie, roll credits. But like, you have a character basically state what we're about to see. And that was that moment, and they cut it from the movie. And Jess actually went to the Wikipedia page later, and they said that they did regret cutting that part.
Having taken that part out, yeah. His name's Jake.
Jake, thank you.
From State Farm.
Yeah. Man, had that been in there, I think it actually would have been much better. That was my complaint the whole time. And I was like,
yeah, I think it would have been a lot better had they actually put that part in. And then later on in the movie, we will be talking spoilers, just FYI for those who are interested. Later on in the movie, Jake goes to Curly's house as he's running from the law, and Curly's wife is the one who answers the phone. Rajit? And you can tell that Curly has beat the utter living shit out of her. Yeah. And so it's like, you know that he's like crying and so distraught because his pride is hurt, not because he actually loved or cared about his wife. Because if he did, he wouldn't have beat the ever-loving shit out of her.
There's a bunch of things that are definitely of the time in this movie. And not only of the time for the movies that was created in the 70s, but then to set it in the 30s. It felt like they made very purposeful choices. So we're looking at this, and yeah. It's so bad.
My actual notes says the entire beginning of this film is a middle-aged white man's wet dream of how his life should go.
Yeah. The great thing apparently about this movie was that like it had one of the best twists, I guess, where we start with the detective is hired by this woman he thinks is the wife of this guy to investigate that he's been cheating on her. So we see one cheating thing, we then get as the opening, and then we get to see another. And then we find out that like the actual wife of this dude comes around and is like, well, I didn't hire you. And so that was the twisty twist. Now our PI has to investigate not only this crime that he started with, but then who hired him for real. And then like it leads him down this path. And yeah, that's basically what happens. There's wrongdoing, and hey, if you have enough money, you can get away with murder, which is the point and the theme stated. Thank you, Vicky.
And also, if you just do all of your stuff in Chinatown where the Chinese are, nobody cares because they're just Chinese people and no one gives a fuck.
It is very racist. Yeah.
Excruciatingly racist, yes.
Yeah. And I think the big issue, it is differently paced than I think we would pace things nowadays. Like I appreciated the twist of not the real wife that hired him. I thought that was interesting and was probably pretty novel at the time. I think that the pacing was interesting because Jess actually pointed this out. I had the feeling of it, but I don't know that I could put it into words. But like every time Jake goes somewhere, he discovers something. We don't really see Jake failing at any point in his discuss. He kind of, we're really being led to all the right answers. It's still mysterious, but like it's just different than we do it now.
In the vein of it being the best screenplay ever written,
mm-hmm.
My actual notes say I can understand how people consider the screenplay to be perfect for the story that they're telling, but that doesn't mean the story is good.
Ooh.
And it's written in a way that mostly shows only things that are central to the plot. Nothing is overdone except arguably for the part about the nursing home accepting Jewish residents. Jake and Evelyn, who is the wife of the guy who has been murdered, who was cheating on his wife and then he's murdered, but maybe he wasn't. Who knows? We know because we've seen the movie.
Yeah.
And Jake and Evelyn go to a nursing home trying to find this old lady to ask her some questions, and they're pretending like they are going to take one of their parents there, and they want to know if like they accepted Jewish people because it was the 30s and Hitler was doing his thing. And so they talk about that, and Polanski, who is the director, his mother died in Auschwitz, which is awful. I don't know how that maths. I don't know how his mother died there, because how old was he at the time? I don't know. I'm just saying. She was there. I think she died there. But that doesn't mean that part of the screenplay is important to the plot of the story in any way, shape, or form, because it's not. So for them to say that there's nothing in it that is like overdone or like their thing is that every single piece of the screenplay is an important and integral part of the plot, and that's not. So what else did they miss?
There you go. Yeah. I did appreciate reading the screenplay, and that I think it helped. I think the writing of the screenplay itself, like the actual writing that the word choice I forget who the screenplay was by, and it is not telling me, Robert Towne. The word choice does help to set up the tone of the story, like every element that they do, which it's interesting because the screenplay, obviously the end result, no one ever really sees the screenplay, but of course the screenplay has to be like elicit emotions out of the directors, out of the producers, in order for them to want to direct and produce it and spend all this money on it. So it's kind of nice to see how you do have to nail the language of the screenplay in order to get the next step of the movie being made. And also, again, to set the tone. But yeah, it's just, we've read enough of them now that I'm picking up on a little bit of differences between genres and how certain screenplays are written, which is cool.
Well, and the Robert Towne, who wrote the screenplay, wrote a completely different ending.
Yes.
They changed the ending.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I find this so aggravating because I think Robert Towne's ending was fine. It would have still, I think, driven home a lot.
Robert Towne's ending would have made me not hate this movie so much.
Would have made me not hate it. It's so, the ending that we actually got, that Roman Polanski changed and then rewrote, is so infuriating. And I think they even, maybe it was in Syd Field's book, maybe it was in Wikipedia, they talk about Robert Towne, even the screenplay writer, even mentioning that at first he was really mad that they changed it. And his interviews kind of seemed like he came around, but also kind of not.
I think it was kind of like he said that he didn't even really want his name attached to it at that point because of the way that they had changed the ending.
Okay.
And the way that they had changed it. And he was like, actually, I don't know that I want my name on that.
Yeah.
And honestly, same, my dude.
Yeah. So let's go ahead and we're in spoiler city. We have been in spoiler city, but we're getting into the deep of spoiler city. So the end of the movie basically takes place in the Chinatown area, where they basically all converge. Both the actual cops are PI, the woman who was the wife and who we've now learned at this point was raped by her own father and has her daughter she's trying to basically smuggle away from him. And then the father who raped his daughter and is the
father and grandfather.
Yeah. And he's the one who set up the murder of her husband because of money. All of it's because of money. Getting away
to try to get his granddaughter away from his daughter so that he can repeat history.
Yes. Yeah. So the ending that Robert Towne wrote was that the daughter main character basically ends up shooting her dad, I think dead. I don't remember if it was dead and shooting him dead. and then she drives off, and then she gets apprehended by the police, and she's unable to explain basically the trauma she's been through, and instead goes to jail. So we see at least what feels a little bit like justice in the granddad/dad dying, but also we don't see justice in that she's done nothing wrong and she's in jail for like basically the rest of her life for committing this murder. That is bleak, and it matches the rest of the tone of the screenplay. I think that would have been just fine. I actually still think it probably would have won all its Academy Awards and stuff. What we get instead is Roman Polanski changed it, and he has her shoot her dad, only like injure him. She tries to drive off with her daughter to save her daughter and herself. She gets killed by the police in Chinatown. Also, they just start shooting out of nowhere. There's people in the background. They don't care because
people everywhere. It's Chinatown. They don't care. They're just killing some Asian people. Who gives a fuck?
Yeah. And so they just shoot openly, and she dies, and her poor granddaughter has to see it. And like one of the very last scenes we see is the granddad/dad taking his daughter/granddaughter away from the scene.
Just like taking her away from the police, and nobody's paying a bit of attention.
So we know basically what's going to happen. And then I think someone tries to comfort Jake, the PI, and is like, this is just what happens in Chinatown. And then you roll credits. And like, that's what that is. And what a terrible ending.
I have a lot of notes. And for those of you who don't know, scene prior to this, when we're finding out that the daughter is also her sister. It's her sister and her daughter.
Yeah.
She's trying to explain to Jake the situation, but she can't really explain to Jake the situation. That's the PI guy. He literally is like, he's asking her the same question over and over. And she keeps changing her answer because he's basically asking, is she your sister? And she's like, well, yes. Or is she your daughter? And she's like, yes, but then also no. But then because she's changing her answer because it is both. And he is literally just slapping her so hard in between every time that she answers it, that she's like physically being moved. And they said that during the filming that Polanski refused to allow a fake hit. They made him hit her for every take that they took. They refused either a fake hit or a stunt person. They made her be hit. And they said that he treated her so horribly on set that she wanted to quit so many times, and they were like, you have a contract, like you're here. And he said that they said one of Polanski's goals was to keep her as isolated as possible from the rest of the cast to make her acting seem more real. And that was a thing. That was a whole thing. And then if you don't know who Polanski is, he was married to Sharon Tate, who was murdered by Charles Manson. So like some bad shit's happened to this guy. I'm not going to lie. Like some bad shit has happened to him. However, just because something bad happened to you does not mean you can do bad things to other people. And the fact that I can watch a movie and see something like this happen, see something where like, you know, a dad sexually abused his daughter, which created a granddaughter/daughter. And then like something bad like this happens and I can be like, ooh, that's a choice. But the fact that Polanski is currently at this moment in time a fugitive from the American government because he fled the country when he drugged and raped a 13-year-old girl, found out the judge was going to throw out his plea that was going to be just like time served and he was going to get some community service. The judge was going to throw out that plea deal and actually put him in jail. So he fled the country because he didn't want to go to prison. Other women have come forward against him since then and said that he was sexually assaulted them as teenagers. And there are still actors who want to work with this guy. There are still actors who like do everything they can to try to work with this guy because he was the director for Chinatown, which is a terrible movie. And he's a horrible piece of shit human. But they're like, well, it's Chinatown.
Yeah. Yeah.
The whole it's Chinatown is just a reflection of it being Los Angeles, being Hollywood. It is exactly what it's supposed to be. But that doesn't mean it's good. And it doesn't mean I have to like it.
Yeah. No, I agree. It was a bad, that ending hurt so much. And it made me so mad. And that's, I think Jess and I were talking before this, but like also, yeah, we both just rage told everyone about how terrible it is. And so it's just, yeah. And so that's terrible if you don't know the history of Polanski and everything that was happening behind the scenes or on the scene. And it's just even worse. And it's just, I would not, Syd Field is wrong. And I would not recommend that to anyone.
It's actually your homework at the end of one of these chapters that we read. I don't know, chapter 8, I think.
7? Yeah.
7
somewhere around there. That's why we finally decided to read it, besides just being annoyed that we'd not.
Yeah, watch Chinatown in a chapter 7. See how the backdrop of the action, the scandal is introduced. See if you can design your opening 10 pages in such a way that you introduce the main character, state the dramatic premise, and sketch the dramatic situation in the most cinematic way by showing photographs of people fornicating in the woods.
Yeah.
I just really wanted to say the word fornicate.
Fornicating. Anyways, now that we've appropriately dissuaded all of you, and that was
where's Becca when we need her?
I know. I'm sure she'd be able to.
I am 100% sure she went. They are talking about Chinatown today, and I am not showing up.
Yeah, there's a line where separating the art from the artist. If someone's able to do that completely, I still think that the ending of this movie is just so. It could have been bleak in the original version of the screenplay, and then for what they did, and then to have that be something that I have to watch now,
The best part was asking you if you had watched it yet, and you were like, "Oh, I'm watching it right now, but I'm not to the end yet. It's okay." And then literally like 5 minutes later, you were like, "Oh, that was the end," and you were like so mad.
I was so.
You went from "it's okay" to like the rage.
Yeah, because it's. I get the mystery, and there is elements in this that I actually do think are really good, and I get why people would study the screenplay until you get to the very end, and you're like, that cannot be the ending. I just don't like it. I did not like it.
I have a lot of problems with the screenplay. I have a lot of problems with the story in the screenplay. Let me rephrase.
Yeah.
I have a lot of problems with the story in the screenplay. The screenplay as on its own is fine. It does, again, with the exception of mentioning Jewish people, it is very close to just telling the story. Like, there's no frivolous scenes to just show something that isn't important to the plot. Like, they really do stick to the plot, and the things that they put in it is interesting. And I think that they did a really good job of making the plot be the main part of the screenplay, which is what you're supposed to do. And I get that. I understand that. They didn't do a terrible job of that. But that doesn't mean it was a great story. And then Polanski took it and made it utter garbage.
Worse. Yeah.
So.
I would love, Jess, for you and I to, maybe I can go through, I'd love to replace this memory. I'd like to go through some other award-winning screenplays to movie adaptations, see if we can find those. Because if the whole point is that this is supposed to be one of the best of the best and we both hated it, I would actually love to see a best of the best that we both ended up really liking and seeing how that might.
Next month's might do that.
That's true.
Because they said that it is critically believed that the movie is better than the book. And it is a critically acclaimed movie for its time.
Right.
It came out in like 74.
That's what we always needed an asterisk from the time.
I'm watching another movie that came out in the 70s. Is this a good decision?
I'm now questioning 75. Wow. I also feel like the dumbest dumb because I told you I didn't even realize it was a book.
I didn't know either until Gavin read it on his channel, and I was watching watching How to Train Your Gavin, as one does.
Yes.
Because he does like 3-hour-long videos and they make me happy.
Amazing.
And one of them where he was reading I don't know if he was reading book to movie adaptations or just things that were scary or whatever, but he was reading that one specifically.
Okay.
And I was like, oh, I didn't know that was also a book. And he was talking about how bad the book was. And he was like, just watch the movie. It's fine. So that's why I was like, when we were thinking of one for next month, I was like, that could be a good one. So.
Oh, I love that. Okay. There's also 2 people who wrote the screenplay, which I think is quite interesting.
Yes.
Just generally that there's okay, cool. I'm excited. Do we want to, for our final bit, do we want to go over the chapter? Is it the Godfather? Chapter. We should do the Godfather at some point, but that is not it. We will leave you in suspense a little bit longer.
I don't have time to read the Godfather or watch it. That one came on 2 VHS tapes. I mean, gosh.
That's what was the really big one we read? And we were like, this is too long. We should have done some shorter ones. I don't even remember now.
I don't remember. All I think about is earlier this month I read The Only One Left, the newest Riley Sager book. And it's set in like, I don't know, the 70s, the 80s, 90s, somewhere around in there. And like the old lady is constantly listening because she can't talk, because she can't move. She only has like movement in one hand. And so one of the girls who works for her reads books to a cassette deck recorder.
Yes.
And then she listens to them through that. And they're talking about like having to like flip them over and play. I'm like, oh my God, do you remember when you used to have to like take the cassette out, flip it over, put it in, hit play?
Oh yes. I had one of the recorders. I could do that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So or you would rent a movie and the person before you didn't rewind it. So the first thing you had to do was rewind the whole movie before you can watch it.
Oh, and it took like 3 minutes at least for it to just in that sound.
And you had to do this so you didn't see it, so you didn't know how it ended.
Yes.
Don't look at the TV screen. Don't be tempted or you'll know how it ends.
We're just on a nostalgia train. I do love Kat saying, what about the Percy Jackson screenplay if you can find it? We will be on the lookout. It's interesting. It's harder to find recent screenplays sometimes, but then we've also just generally had a hard time finding. I don't fully understand this because you can buy screenplays, which I guess makes sense. But also, it's hard to find them.
We do plan to hopefully in October do Vampire Academy.
Yes.
So we'll read the first Vampire Academy book, watch the Vampire Academy movie, and then watch the first season of Vampire Academy TV show.
Yes. So we will have all sorts of things to compare to. This is a great point that we will actually also eventually be able to do Percy. And Jess and I are huge Percy Jackson fans. So we could have the book, the movie, and the show.
Let it be known to the universe that both the Percy Jackson movie and the Vampire Academy movie are nothing like their books. However, I do like them both. But I also watched them both before I read the books.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that's fair.
So, like, I watched the Percy Jackson movie in theaters because somebody asked me to go with them to see it. I don't even remember who I seen it with. And I was like, wow, that's really interesting. And they were like, it's a book series. It's like mid-grade and it's Greek mythology. And I was like, oh, I love that. And so I then read the books and I was like, wow, this is nothing like the movie.
I'll say that I'd read the Percy Jackson series first before I watched the movie, but it was right around the same time that I did it. I think. How old was my brothers? Yeah. I think the Vampire Academy movie is significantly better than the Percy Jackson. I was one of those people where I was like, I still watched it a bunch, but the movie was upsetting in some ways.
I take more problems with, Annabeth not supposed to be a brunette. I get it. Like, I understand. I love her. Alexandra Daddario is fucking gorgeous. I love her. I take less qualms with the fact that she was a brunette than the fact that she was a 26-year-old woman playing a teenage girl.
Oh, I know. Well,
if boobs the size of Texas, like, she had, like, I don't know, 2 years before she played Annabeth, she played like a 25-year-old woman in like a Law and Order episode.
Yeah.
That was my problem.
It was a travesty all around. They should have aged them up, but they didn't really age them up at all in the first movie. They were just like, and then
they're like 15, 16, maybe.
Yeah, okay. So they aged them up like 2 years, but they definitely should have just been like, open up a little bit.
The books are way better, but I didn't hate the movie, and I could sit and watch the movie right now and be fine with it. Like it's not that big of a deal to me because again, it didn't like ruin my childhood. Where if I had read the books first, I would be like, "This is nothing like my childhood," and I would be upset.
Yeah, I actually just found the movie at some point poorly paced. I could watch it, but I would skip parts of it if I were to do it. Like the whole casino sequence can just be thrown out.
Yeah, who needs it?
So dull. There was a couple parts where I'm just like, why are we doing this? Yeah. But it just like so. Anyways, that's really my only.
I completely agree.
Yeah,
but also, it wasn't the worst movie I ever.
It was not the worst. Yeah, I mean, we take our cues from Uncle Rick, and he was real mad at it, but. Should we talk
back to this guy?
Back to this. We just went on a little Percy Jackson journey, a little pivot. Yeah.
So we read chapters 7 and 8.
Chapter 7 and 8. Mm-hmm.
Chapter 8 is mostly just, or maybe it's chapter 7. Chapter 7? Chapter 9? Chapter 7 is mostly the beginning of the screenplay of Chinatown.
Yes. Which we sought it out, but I do actually appreciate him putting it in the book. Which I think if you flip through the rest of the book, he does that several times later when he's trying to get you to like reference and understand something, which I think is much smarter than just being like, you can find it, which maybe back then it was easier to find. I don't know. I'm trying to see.
Just talk about a few things that like I have highlighted that are like setting up the story process.
Yeah.
Like he says, if you change a scene or a line of dialogue on page 10, it impacts and influences a scene or a line of dialogue on page 80. Basically, because we are novel writers, first and foremost, if you change something on page 10, a line, or you add a scene in, it may or may not affect something greatly at the end. But because a screenplay is so small and concise, changing something that even as something small will affect things greater later on. Yeah, those are the words I wanted to use. The reader must know what's going on immediately from the very first words on the page. It's important to set up your story visually. So that's the first thing you do in a screenplay, is to set up your story visually and let your reader know what's going on. The reader of the screenplay, who are not going to be very many people other than people who are also studying screenplays. But the point being that you have to kind of know where your story's going to go. Like you can't be a pantser and a screenplay writer. It's not going to work out well for you.
You know what? In earlier chapters, he mentions that you can kind of do that, but he agreed. He's like, you don't need to know every little bit. You're probably going to go through this several times and have to throw bits out. But yeah, I agree. You should know what you're working toward. It's definitely a much bigger deal because it is so much shorter and because every word matters. I think a lot of it also is like movies rely a lot more on like callbacks because it is much more condensed, and so certain words that you use early on, the impact can just be so much bigger. I like that he also talks about one of the things that he asks himself, Robert Towne, the screenwriter, is what is this character afraid of? What is their deepest fear? Which I think is an interesting thing to sort of posit. We'll see that a lot, is how like the idea of what the character is afraid of. I think I tend to have some clue of that in when I'm novel writing, like what's at stake? What are they scared most to lose or whatever? But actually thinking about their biggest fear seems to be a really big thing for him. Let's see. He talks about how none of the characters are physically described, which is really important. It's not something that I would have intuitively thought when writing a screenplay, but like never, a lot of it's never physically describing them. It's more like, here's their clothes. Like, are they picking the fanciest suit despite not being in like a suit place? Is it rumpled? Like a lot of it is much more descriptive in the choices the character makes to represent themselves rather than what they actually look like.
I made a note to myself in the margins that I have a lot of questions about Syd Field and his preferences in women because of his love of Chinatown, but then also he's waxing poetic about American Beauty in chapter 8.
Yeah.
And that makes me feel a little sketchy.
Mm-hmm.
A little sketchy.
A little sketchy.
If you haven't seen American Beauty, it's a middle-aged man having an affair with a teenager.
The examples he chose and some of the movies at the time that got really popular, you're kind of just like, I don't know if this says more about Syd Field or more about like society at the time with what they've determined.
He could have chose different examples.
No, he totally could. I mean, here's my thing. Sometimes he talks about Lord of the Rings, which he does in chapter 8, but like doesn't really linger over it super long when he could.
You mean Lord of the Rings, that book that only has 6 female characters in the entire thing, and they're all described as the most beautiful, gorgeous women never to exist, and they're completely perfect, and they never argue with a man, and they just stand there and look pretty? Those ones? Those 6 women?
Yeah. Wait, have you read Lord of the Rings?
Yeah.
Okay. I've not read Lord of the Rings. So I was like, I was thinking, Arwen's pretty cool. Like,
Éowyn arguably is like the badass of Lord of the Rings.
Oh, but
there are, I think, 7 female characters in the entire Lord of the Rings series, and one of those is a spider. So,
is she a cool spider?
There are 50 named male characters, not including unnamed male characters, but 50 named male characters. 7 women, one of them is a spider, and other than Éowyn, they are all based off of his wife, so they're all the most beautiful, gorgeous woman to ever have existed. Éowyn is based off of his daughter, and so while she is attractive, she is also headstrong and strong and fierce.
You're allowed to be fierce if you're the daughter.
Right.
Yeah, but they want you to be fierce then, but actually
the other 5 women are all like blonde, gorgeous, stand there quietly and just look pretty. So again, I have questions about Syd Field and things about his life and the way he feels about women. In general.
Man. Let's see. What was chapter 7 about? Setting up the story. Chapter 8 is about the 2 incidents. So basically the idea is like the inciting incident, which I think a lot of us recognize, though I do think it seems a little bit different than in movies. He talks a lot about having the inciting incident pretty early on, like the opening, almost the opening image. And then he has a thing called the key incident, which is what the story is about, which I think is what we usually in the novel world think of as the inciting incident. But you can correct me if you agree with that, Jess.
I do agree with you. That is a similar part, different wording.
Yeah.
I also highlighted in chapter 8, the first 10 pages of your screenplay establish 3 specific things. The first being that the main character is introduced, so we know who the story is about. The second thing we create within the first 10 pages is within this first 10-page unit of action is the dramatic premise, which what is the story about. And then the third thing to establish is the situation, the circumstances surrounding the action. The 2 incidents provide the foundation of the storyline, which the inciting incident sets the story in motion, and the key incident establishes the story. So basically, he tells you how to set up an inciting and key incident. In those, these are the 3 things you need to have, which I think is helpful, which is why I highlighted it.
Yes.
I'm not saying this entire book is trash. I'm just saying that I would have preferred different examples. Okay.
Let's see. Yeah, very clear. No matter what form a film takes, whether linear or non-linear, there's always going to be an inciting incident and a key incident. So basically, he's saying that even with like flashbacks, even with prologue-y kind of vibes, voiceover elements, there's always going to be this inciting incident and this key incident to get the story started. At the end of chapter 8, I actually don't know if we have homework. I think other than to create your inciting incident and your key incident. He makes a point about being like, don't even start writing until you have these figured out.
I mean, but what if I want to?
Yeah. Did you say, don't tell me what to do?
I said, but what if I want to?
What if I want to? Yeah. He's like, well, then you'll just have to do it over again.
What if I want to do the whole thing twice? I mean, I am currently rewriting French Grim Reaper for the 4th time. Like,
yeah.
Obviously, I love to rewrite stuff. God, chapters 9 and 10 are really long, and there's another screenplay in it. What's the screenplay?
Tell us your secrets. I don't know, but it has Mark Ruffalo in it. Oh, Collateral?
Mark Ruffalo?
Yeah, Max from the LAPD detective fanning Mark Ruffalo.
All right.
So you know what? It's at least more recent than the 70s.
Listen, I mean, this is the... Wait, I don't have the newly revised edition. I just have the revised and updated edition. You have the newly revised
and the newly revised. Yeah. So...
Yeah. They're the exact same book, by the way. It was just updated in like 2004.
I actually would love if someone did what Jessica Brody did for Save the Cat for Syd Field's screenplay. Like, I think that this would actually benefit from having updated examples. So honestly, if anyone had any recommendations that are similar to this, but with updated examples, that might be even more helpful. Although at this point, I feel committed to finishing this one.
Yeah. Well,
I like Half-Life too.
This was 25 years in between updates. So technically, we're only like 7 years on from. Wait, math? The math ain't math, and Jessica. We're 15 years on from the last time it was updated. 15.
Yeah, 2005.
15.
Almost 20.
18. Yeah. Wow, I'm old. Okay. Yeah.
So someone somewhere in 5 years ought to have a new version of this. Syd won't.
Right. Syd won't, because he's dead, in case you didn't know.
But someone will.
Someone somewhere will have updated this.
I will say, for what it's worth, I do appreciate that he does segment it out. I feel like it's going quite slowly, but I have like a decent amount of little notes here. Yeah. Because I am trying to do the assignments like as they're given in the book and as I read. And, it's coming to me slowly, which is nice. I finally had an idea for the movie. And so I think, I'm building scenes out. I'm going to try and get my inciting incident versus my key incident. But,
I don't know who gets the money from these things because, again, he has deceased. Mm-hmm. But they'll be getting a little bit more money from me because I think I want to buy the workbook.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
There's a workbook that goes along with this.
Mm-hmm.
So I think before I start the screenplay, I want to do the workbook. Again, I'm not saying that this is a bad book. I think this book is fine. It's the foundation to screenwriting, the step-by-step guide from concept to finished script. It gives you tips. It gives you important things. I just don't love all of his examples. Okay.
Yeah. And it truly is step-by-step. So I will say that as someone who's not written a screenplay before, you got
I think it's a great opening into the world. I think there probably are things that are more in-depth and more helpful for people who are like not writing their first screenplay. But
Yeah.
I think if you're looking, especially if you're looking at going from writing novels to writing screenplays, I have at least found this helpful in like the world of trying to figure out what needs to change, what needs to be different, how I need to approach it differently. I think this has been helpful for that.
Yeah, I fully agree. Yeah, there were a lot of things that I would not have even thought of in the world of screenplays, like general don'ts, like describing your characters and what they look like. I don't do that anyways, but you know, there's just so many different random things where you're like, oh, I would not have known to do that. Okay, so
you don't have to describe your character because they're standing on the screen.
Yeah.
Unless there is something about them that is specific to that character and it's about their story. If they have a physical disability, they're not pale pasty white, like if there's something about them that is specific to the plot of the story, then you would have to tell that. But otherwise,
don't have to worry about it.
You don't have to worry about it. Be whatever you want.
That's nice. I feel like this is my new calling. Having not written one at all yet. Not even.
You still have to name them though.
Oh, yeah, this is a conundrum. You're right. I've fallen into the trap.
Yeah, you still have to give them names. In fact, you have to write it all the time, every time they speak. So
yeah, I know.
You're gonna have to know what the names are. You can't just write, I'll fill this in later every time because then you wouldn't know which character was speaking. Because there's no like cues from the paragraphs.
So true.
Because there are no paragraphs. So maybe this isn't for you.
Well,
you're gonna have to learn to name some people.
Yeah.
I spent one single day writing a werewolf romance and I named 4 characters.
Okay. Well, 4 is pretty impressive.
In one day.
That is. I think that's good. Was it first and last name? Was it just middle nickname?
First name. Some of them have nicknames.
Mm-hmm. That feels fair. Okay, shall we reveal? Even though I do not have the book with me, shall we reveal?
I need to find out if the book is the same as title as the movie, because I don't know, or who the author is.
Oh, I have the author. Hold on, I pulled it up. I think it is. No, it's based on because the Wikipedia entries has Jaws film and Jaws novel. I was like, well, I'm committed.
She has committed the greatest sin. She has revealed too early.
We didn't do a drum roll, no confetti.
She did nothing. She just went for it.
I did.
Anywho, for those who missed that, we will be reading and watching Jaws next month. Yes. The movie came out in 1975. The book came out sometime prior to that. 1974.
That's pretty impressive turnaround. We're gonna have to look at history for some of this because I actually think history is gonna be kind of interesting.
The novel was written by Peter Benchley, and many critics of like the great critics of the time believed that the movie was leaps and bounds better than the book, which is why we chose it. Also, this week is Shark Week, in case you didn't know. There were
a movie. Have you seen it, Jess? Have you seen Jaws?
When I was a kid.
Okay, that's what I was saying. I was like, I vaguely have a recollection, but not really. Could have just been seeing the trailer or the poster.
It's been like 25-30 years since I've seen it, because I definitely was between 5 and 10. So
I do want to pull attention real quick to the Jaws the novel Wikipedia entries, because it says, through a marketing campaign orchestrated by Doubleday and paperback publisher Bantam, Jaws was incorporated into many book sales clubs, catalogs, and attracted media interest. So marketing worked then, marketing works now. It was a hardback bestseller for 44 weeks, sold millions of copies the next year.
He was a freelance journalist who was commissioned to write the novel in 1971. So it wasn't even his idea.
Money for it either then, if he was commissioned.
Well, it wasn't his idea. He basically was a ghostwriter, but he got to put his name on it.
Yeah. Interesting. It grows interest in shark attacks after you learn it. Yeah. Okay. I've never read the book. Cat, this is the month. We'll be back to chat with the book. It'll be fun. I might actually even get a head start on this one.
Something weird just happened with my speakers, and there was like stuff coming from the wrong place, and I don't know what happened, but I was scared.
Oh my God.
I think you're back though.
Okay. Did I morph? Was it like your devil voice the other day?
It sounded a little bit like it, but not quite so bad.
Well, this is fascinating. Well, Jessica, we've done it again. I'll say again that this was Heartstopper. Excellent choice. I'm excited to see what we think of Jaws. I will also say that some of these have been good choices, at least in like, sometimes the adaptations are completely different. Sometimes they're very similar. Sometimes, like, I'm excited for Jaws to see if we agree with the critics. Is the movie going to be just that much better than the book?
And there is a screenplay adaptation available for Jaws because it is so old. We will post those on our community tabs later because I forgot to get them and post them in the description box earlier. But I did look it up and make sure that it was available.
Yay.
We did good. Go us.
Go us. Hooray. All right. Well, thank you, friends, for joining us. And we will see you all next month. Oh, we might be moving it to the very last Tuesday of the month, but we will update you as always.
Yes, because we've had multiple failures with the third Tuesday of the month, and we think that there's a specific thing going on at Kate's house.
Yes,
problems.
That might be a culprit.
So we're gonna research.
Yeah. Thank you, guys. We'll see you next time. Bye.
Bye.